Again, my name is Klos, and today I'm going to walk you through some practical and straightforward ways to secure your home work setup. These tips and tricks will help you whether you're working from home or at the office, or even just in your day-to-day use of the computer at home to better secure your use of your personal data and your computer. Our agenda today, we'll talk about who is vulnerable, what's changed in this last month or so, and we'll talk about everyday habits that we should all be following to minimize risk, what you should do specifically now that you're working from home, if you aren't doing them already, what to do if you think you've been hacked, and some tips on how to respond to those situations. I'll provide some additional resources, and like she said, we'll go through questions at the end. All right, so up until just a month or so ago, we were talking about cybersecurity quite a bit, and this little graphic comes from Verizon's 2019 Data Breach Investigations Report. They've been doing this for several years, and it is the go-to for the cybersecurity industry to see what trends are going on. For many years now, small businesses have been a prime target. We hear, of course, in the news about governments and the healthcare industry being attacked with ransomware in particular. I think it was the city of Jupiter here in Florida got attacked just about a week ago. And fortunately, they decided to not pay the ransom and instead to invest in the recovery as needed to get all their data back online. But it's common for us to hear those stories and not so much about all the small businesses that are attacked, but we are all a prime target, and it's important that we protect ourselves just as well as those other industries. Of course, things have changed dramatically in the last month. We feel like we've been working through this now for several weeks, and it may even seem like we're developing a new normal. But one thing can be for sure, and that is that this is a new normal for the cybersecurity industry as well, because there are new opportunities for attacks now. Most people are not accustomed to working from home, and they haven't been prepared for it. So their work from home situation isn't as secure as your office might be. Furthermore, we're all hypersensitive to news these days. We're nervous and certainly concerned about the economy and what that means for us individually. So we tend to be click happy. Unfortunately, what that means is we want to click on every link that we get. Even when it seems like it's from legitimate news sources, we really have to be careful of what that can mean. This is, of course, a prime environment for scam artists and hackers. And unfortunately, this includes terrorists and, of course, organized crime. I'll point out that most of us probably have accounts that have been compromised without even knowing that we have. And so our passwords and a lot of our private information is available on the dark web. And that, of course, is what these hackers are using to exploit us in the ways that they can, or what they're looking for will be used and disseminated on the dark web if they capture that information from us. Therefore, we really got to protect ourselves in every way we can. And so I'm going to go through now some very specific things you can do to protect yourself and your business. If there are three key takeaways from today, this would be what I hope they are. First of all, we've heard this over and over again. If you see something, say something. Well, it applies to your use of the computer and email and your phone as well. If there's something that just seems sketchy or unusual, you should let your IT support know about it so that if there is a reason to be concerned, it can be investigated. Sometimes, or a lot of times, those emails you get are just phishing emails that you delete, and that's the right thing to do. but perhaps other people in the organization are getting the same one and there might be a link to it behind the scenes. Password protection. Of course, we all have a lot of passwords and a lot of accounts to manage, and that can be very tedious, especially when we're encouraging you to use long and complicated passwords. So what we've listed here are 4 password keeper programs. Some of these can actually create complicated passwords for you, but each has a different method and a way to provide you with a secure location for all your passwords. It's better than trying to carry a notebook around, certainly a lot easier than that. And chances are any form or page or contact in your Outlook or something like that that you're using for saving all your passwords is very insecure. So look into using any of these. I do recommend long and complicated passwords and different ones for every site. So that's why these can help. Of course, that app and every other login that can possibly be protected with MFA should be. MFA is multi-factor authentication. It's also called two-factor authentication. And it just means that you're verifying who you are besides with just your password. That would be your first factor of authentication. So the second one is oftentimes a text code on your phone, or it might be in the app, it might have an approve option, a button that you can tap and allows you to log in. 365 has this, it has for a long time. Gmail has it, Log Me In. Just about every cloud service has it or should, and I would encourage you to do this for every login that you possibly can. All right, talked about ClickHappy a minute ago. Here's an example of how that might work. This is a screen capture from an email that someone sent me a few weeks back. They got a request or a message that their password had been reset for Log Me In. This looks legitimate. The text is all written properly. It's formatted correctly. When I hover over the cursor, you see the little box that popped up, and it shows that the actual URL that the click would go to is the same as what's shown in the link, and so that's a good sign. I happen to know that this is a correct and safe link. However, if it were me without the experience, I'd be very concerned about the fact that the web page it wants to take me to is called logme.in, not logmein.com, which is what you would expect to see. So the right thing to do here would be, even when you know it's right, go to logmein.com manually from your web browser and log in to reset your password or find out what happened to your account. Always use that methodology when you can avoid clicking on links in emails, because this is where most people get tricked into going to a phishing website and entering their login credentials. All right, obvious tip here, and I'd probably belabor the point a bit, but backup is of key importance. It always has been, and I believe it's what is saving the city of Jupiter in their case, and will for any business that gets attacked by ransomware, so that you don't have to pay again, those hackers or the organized crime, or again, even terrorists. Have a good backup. Make sure it's tested. Make sure it's off-site as well as local, so that you can restore no matter what happens. Maybe even it's just someone deleting a file, but you need to have good backup. You should do this for your personal data as well. All those pictures you have of your kids on your computer, the last thing you want is to lose all that memorabilia. So have a good backup of some kind. So working from home, this offers us some opportunities to talk about specifics that will better secure your home environment anyway, but these are very important for you if you're working on connecting to the office, so that you can provide the kind of security that we would normally have set up at an office. You shouldn't be connected through a public Wi-Fi. Obviously, we're not going to Starbucks or hotels right now, but we will again soon. And I would discourage you from using their Wi-Fi for doing work. If you want to watch Netflix or something like that, that's fine, but don't have any of your office connections through their Wi-Fi. Use your hotspot. Everyone's got unlimited data plans these days, and those should be sufficient for most work. If you've got Wi-Fi at home, which most people do, of course, please secure that with a good password key. And don't give it out to everybody. You should be careful about how you use that. And don't use your neighbor's Wi-Fi. You have no idea what's going on that network. Keep your computer up to date. Even the Apple computers, all of these operating systems have to be kept up to date. So many times when we hear about those news stories of ransomware infection, it's on a system that wasn't updated. And it might be a software, it might not be the operating system, but these patches have been out there for a long time and they're still being exploited. So make sure your computer's up to date. Make sure your Office programs are up to date and any other applications you're using. They need to be kept up to date, which also means you need to pay for the annual subscription for a lot of applications, whether it's QuickBooks or your VPN software. All of those need to be kept up to date to patch for security holes. Everyone should have a good anti-malware program that is also kept up to date. I also suggest uninstalling unnecessary applications on your computer. You might think to do that to save space on the computer, and that can help and it can improve performance, but it can also eliminate some of those risks from software that isn't being kept up to date. Finally, the other devices that I'm talking about or mentioning here would be all of the other things you have in your house that are connected to the internet. It might be security cameras you have, or a Nest, or Ring system. Those platforms are all potential access points to your network and therefore your computer and business data should they be compromised. So keep them secure by checking on them regularly to make sure that any updates are applied. Also reset the default passwords. Those are the most important things you can do. They're not hard to do. You can find help on any of those vendors' websites on how to provide that basic security. All right, a few other things, and these I would strongly encourage you to talk to your IT support before implementing or about how to implement them. A lot of people are using VPN or other types of applications to connect to the office. Make sure that those are fully secured and kept up to date again, as I mentioned before. Also understand how to disconnect properly. A lot of times VPN software and others will run in the background. You don't even see it, or it's got a little icon maybe in the system tray and you aren't paying attention when you walk away from your computer. You've left it connected to the office, and the kid comes up looking for his homework assignment that's saved on that computer and happens to browse into the entire array of company data. So you want to be very conscious of how your computer is being used so that when you're done working, you're disconnecting from the business connections. If you have any private data viewable on your screen, you need to be aware of your surroundings and realize that you could be violating HIPAA or PCI compliance standards if you're using that incorrectly, or if other people can see it. One suggestion would be to create a separate login profile on your computer. So you may already have multiple logins set up, one for you and again the kids or spouse. You can also set up a new one for yourself that is specifically for working. And you just log into that to connect to the VPN or other access point. And that way you're setting yourself up to not use the computer for home and work at the same time. Finally, if you're walking away from the computer, it's a great idea to just lock it real quick with a Control-Alt-Delete and hit Enter. That's a Windows key code, of course. And that way the next person who walks up has to log in themselves in order to start using it. And they would have their own profile and be only seeing their own stuff. A couple other little tips I would recommend. Maintaining any equipment that you took home from the office, or of course, if you lent out equipment to your employees, that you're tracking who's got what and prepared to have it come back. And of course, have everything connected to a good surge protector, and if possible, better yet, a battery backup. All right. So let's talk about what happens if we think something went wrong on our computer. We got a strange pop-up, or everything went black for a minute, some other indicator. You put in your username and password at a site, and instead of getting the normal next page, it just closed or something to that effect. It's a good idea now to get started on troubleshooting that. And the first thing to do is stop, figure out what you did, quite possibly disconnect the computer from the internet, because sometimes these services are running across the internet. If you're at an office, it might be helpful to disconnect the computer from the network to prevent it from accessing other computers too. Get some professional help involved, whoever that might be in your organization, to support your IT. Again, it may be in an office situation necessary to disconnect all computers or the internet so that we isolate what is infected. Protect the backup. One of the things that hackers do when they get on a network is they try to infiltrate the backup system so that you can't use it to recover your data. So I recommend having a different type of login, a different username and password for the backup software that's different from any other you're using. And in the case of being concerned you might have been hacked, it's a good idea to go ahead and get it disconnected from the computer or network so that it can't be attacked. We'll probably be changing passwords. Quite often this happens with email, so you're going to want to change your email password or other office logins. Document anything that was done and everything that you know that occurred. And finally, you may need to contact authorities. They can be helpful, especially if theft is involved in recovering monies. It might be necessary for your insurance as well. And I recommend everyone have cyber breach insurance. Each business is different and will have a different need for that, but it can help you in the worst case scenario. All right, we're getting towards the end here. Additional resources. So these are some things you can use. We'll be providing this information, so you don't need to write it down at the moment, but these are good places to get more info. First of all, NIST.gov is where I see a lot of suggestions on how to improve security, and this is a good place to start for any person or business. Bitsite.com is a website that wants to sell you on some security services, but one thing I like is that you can put in your email address and you can get some information about the security from the internet's perspective on your own domain name. HaveIBeenPwned.com is a place you can find out if your accounts or some of your accounts are compromised and are on the dark web. It will show you things like the extent to what the breach was, if it was just addresses or if it included passwords or potentially other personal information. And it'll tell you what site it was that got compromised. So for example, if you had a LinkedIn account in 2016, your account was most likely hacked or compromised and put onto the dark web, and this site will show you that. If you have Office 365 for email, please look up your secure score and start using Microsoft's recommendations to improve security there. That will help improve your email security. Finally, we recommend cybersecurity training for all businesses on a regular basis. And one of the sites that we like to use is webroot.com. So they have a great anti-malware program too for both business and home. All right, well, I've raced through this pretty quickly, and hopefully you've had a chance to take some of it in. I'm delighted to answer any questions. Again, we help businesses achieve better results through technology. I hope these recommendations are helpful, and LeMay, if we've got any questions, I'll get going.
Hi, yes, thank you, Keenan. First question, will the Chamber be able to share this recording with the membership? And the answer is absolutely yes. I forgot to mention that. We'll be sharing the recording as well as the slide deck with the Chamber to disseminate however you wish. All right, I have another question. What do you recommend for anti-malware?
Yeah, right, great question. And I think I answered that right at the end. Webroot.com is a good one. Any that require a paid subscription, I think probably is a good choice. I like Webroot because it's small and doesn't put a lot of different bells and whistles and stuff that gets in the way and can sometimes slow the computer down. But as long as you're not just relying on a free version, one that's going to remind you when it's not working, and pop up to make sure that your subscription is up to date, those are the kinds of things that we look for in a good antivirus program.
Do you have a brand name that you recommend?
Well, I put Webroot in there again. I would say the only one that I tend to shy away from is Kaspersky, and I say that because it's a Russian company, and that just, it was actually recommended not to use them, I think, by the State Department or Homeland Security a while back, and I would stick to that. Otherwise, McAfee or Norton or any other that require the paid subscription would be good.
All right. What is a VPN?
VPN stands for Virtual Private Network. It can be a very secure way to connect remote computers to an office network. However, it can be insecure too if, again, the computer isn't protected, the remote computer, or if the software gets up to date, or if the security settings in the VPN software aren't fully set up properly. So great way to connect in some cases as long as it's used effectively.
All right. How do I enable MFA?
Each site is going to be a little different. In 365, the settings icon, I think it's the gear icon in the upper right of the website when you're logged in, has the security or account setup area, and that would probably be the same in most other locations, whether it's LogMeIn or Gmail or any other website. There's probably a way to do that in the same place that you're going to be resetting your password or doing other security settings. Each site is, like I said, different, and I would recommend just doing a quick internet search or inside the profile or the portal, excuse me, of whatever site you're using. Just search and help for how to enable. I mean, you can put authentication as a word or MFA or just security in general, and that'll take you there.
All right. Another question regarding MFA. What if the website doesn't have it?
Then I would consider using a different one, or call them up or communicate with them how vitally important you feel that it is. I would certainly question why we would want to use it if it's got very personal data in there. I would also want to make sure or try to use an entirely different email address if possible than I use in other places. Hopefully that's something that they'll consider implementing. There are some services you can implement for MFA for multiple sites. That's sort of a business decision, that there are ways you can roll out MFA for the business as a whole using a different third-party application rather than the site's MFA, especially in the case where they don't have it.
Okay. Any other questions? I think we're winding down here. If there are no more questions, we thank you very much for joining us today. We hope that you found this helpful. And as I said, the slide deck and the recording will be provided to you. And if you have any questions or concerns, you're welcome to email us or Paula. Any questions regarding what we discussed today and you need us to elaborate, we're happy to do that. So everybody stay well and healthy. And thank you so much.
Thanks.